We talk about pensions and the changes that are starting next week again on the programme. Did a big phone in on it earlier in the week, and here's a little bit more because the government's pension reforms come into force on the other side of the Easter weekend. They've been billed as the most radical changes to the way people take their pensions for a century. However, as with all things financial, some people will be trying to get their hands on your money and not have your best interests at heart. An investigation's been launched into claims the details of millions of people's pensions are being sold to fraudsters and cold calling firms. It's feared it'll be used to scam pensioners who can access their full pension pots under new rules that have started, will start next week. Jennie Kreser is from Sutton and is partner and head of pensions at Silverman Sherlock in the city, and I asked her what we should be wary of.
Well, there are two aspects really, and it depends on whether you're dealing with someone that's got a good old-fashioned final salary defined benefit scheme, rare as they may be nowadays, but there are still plenty of those around, where the scammers try something that's called pension liberation. That's one aspect to it. The second aspect is for those who suddenly, in the next couple of days, have been told, woohoo, you can now take your pension as cash and spend it how you will. And the scammers are licking their chops in glee, waiting to get their hands on those. Now, the scams are basically the same, whether you're dealing with the old pension liberation or the new scams that are coming on stream. There's nothing new about them. It's the same old scam. So you may, for example, get a telephone call. We've all had these annoying calls, haven't we, on our phones for, PPI insurance and can we do your loft insulation? It's a variation on that theme. And someone will phone you up and say, have you got a pension? We can get you all the money, and we've got this great investment that we can put it into, Brazilian oil futures, which will guarantee you a fantastic return. That's a very typical kind of call. They'll say something like, there's a loophole in the law, and if you move really fast, we can exploit that loophole and you can get your cash. Well, yes, you may get your cash. The scammers are more likely to get your cash. And the problem is that these wonderful investment returns are completely illusory. They don't exist. You will also probably not be told about the large tax bill that you will probably get, because one of the things people are thinking about is we can get the cash. They don't realise that there is a tax bill to pay. And if you don't do it in the right way, Mr. Taxman's going to come along and take a very large chunk of what you think is your money and say, thank you very much, goodbye.
So you could lose out twice. You could lose your initial sum to the scammers and then loads more, which you've got to find from somewhere else, to the taxman. Okay.
Absolutely.
These are, at the end of the day, old-fashioned con tricks. They dangle pound signs in front of your ears if you give them time on the telephone, promise you the earth, deliver nothing, and leave you feeling rotten, and also in a really poor financial position for the future. Your future finances could be seriously affected if these people get to you. So we can say, until we're blue in the face, you receive a cold call, don't give them the time of the day, put the phone down. But some people will be taken in with the potential, with the promise of great returns. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the government, for those who are coming into these new pension freedoms, so that's those who have got personal pensions or what are called money purchase schemes. So I'm kind of talking about them now. Now, what the government has set up these guidance arrangements, in other words, that they will give people some financial guidance, not advice, as I've said before to your listeners. It's not tailored financial advice. It's a bit of guidance, which will basically just say, well, these are some of your possible options of what you can do. It's not necessarily going to be enough. If someone comes along with an idea and says, and it sounds too good to be true, believe me, it almost certainly will be too good to be true. Always get some proper advice, and that's generally from clever people called IFAs, independent financial advisors. Now, in the past, they've had a really bad press, and there have been some slightly iffy IFAs out there in the past. But nowadays, they are generally regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. They have to have qualifications. They have to have passed exams. And they don't necessarily, they're not necessarily expensive. And they're certainly a lot cheaper than suddenly handing your money over to a scam artist and a large chunk to the taxman. None of us like paying money to the taxman. And so it is really worthwhile. Stop, think very hard before blowing your hard-earned pension money, whether with these scammers or indeed taking it to that next stage, thinking about going off on the cruise and going off and buying a nice car. And again, we've chatted about this in the past. You know, people tend to underestimate how long they're going to live for, which is nice. But it does mean that if you go and blow your cash now, maybe at the age of 55, because that's the earliest age you can legally now take your money, you could be living for a good 30 years or more beyond 55, you know, living to 85, even 90, bless them, even, you know, there are a lot more centenarians. The Queen is having to send an awful lot more telegrams than she ever used to do. And so, you know, think very, very carefully before blowing your money on living today, because you're going to have to live for an awful long time tomorrow.
Right. I don't know, Jenny, how more clear you can be about the potential pitfalls. I mean, I guess in some ways you'll say that this is a good idea, people having the ability to shape their own future financially, but the pitfalls are huge.
Yes.
And we're just trying to help people avoid falling into those, aren't we?
Absolutely. I think that's right. I mean, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't do it, you know, because there are some people who desperately perhaps need some cash, you know, to keep the wolves from the door, or if they've taken out payday loans, God help them, poor things. And, you know, they feel that this is the only way they can do and get that monkey off their back is to draw down their pension. And I'm not going to say that, you know, for those people, you shouldn't think about it, but get advice before you do it. There may be other alternatives before you sort of press the red button, the nuclear option. Yeah.
We said it very clearly earlier in the week. We've said it again. So we're doing our bit, and good luck to everybody on that one. Jenny, thanks for your sound advice again today.
Always a pleasure.
Jennie Kreser from Silverman Sherlock in the City. She's head of pensions there. And, well, you may have thought we banged on about this quite enough this week. But on the other hand, perhaps the message has got through, hopefully, and that has been useful to you as well. It's BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey. 19 minutes.